Hello students, this is Dr. T.S. Roy, your professor and head Department of Anatomy. Welcome to the virtual practical class on exocrine glands. The objectives of the class are you should be able to identify and differentiate a serous and a mucous acini, identify the intercalated, striated and excretory ducts of a salivary gland, identify a serous demilume, identify parotid, submandibular and sublingual glands, identify sweat gland and its ducts, sebaceous glands, identify a non-lactating and a lactating mammary gland. Imagine that you are in the histology class of NDMC Medical College and Hindu Rao Hospital and your teachers are showing you the slides. Let us recapitulate the theoretical aspects of the salivary glands. There are three major salivary glands, the parotid, submandibular and the sublingual glands. There are minor glands in the oral cavity also. The basic unit of the salivary gland is called salivum. It is composed of the secretory cells. Those are either mucous or serous cells. Here the serous cells in the acinus is depicted as red color and the mucous cells is depicted with yellow color. So this is one acinus, the singular is acinus and plural is acini. Already you know what is an acinus. From the acinus, the secretions are collected into the lumen of the acinus and the ductular system begins there. The first ductular system is the intercalated duct, which is lined by squamous to cuboidal epithelium. The next part is the striated duct, which is cuboidal to columnar, and the last part is excretory duct, which is lined by columnar, simple columnar or stratified columnar epithelium. The serous acini are spherical in shape and the mucous acini are tubular in shape. The ductular portion varies from gland to gland. In the serous gland, the intercalated duct is very long. The striated ducts are small and the excretory ducts are also long. Proportionally, in the submandibular and sublingual gland, intercalated ducts are very small. You may not be able to identify a intercalated duct in these glands. They have large striated duct and excretory ducts. The serous acini secretes watery secretion and the mucous acini secretes jelly-like secretions. I will show what is a demilume. This is showing the single acinus and what happens that mucinogen granules imbibe water immediately after death of the animal if it is not fixed immediately. Then what happens? Because increased amount of water displaces the serous cells, and those serous cells comes on the top of the mucous acini. So this half moon shaped serous acini is called serous acinus is called a demilume, serous demilume. But the secretion of the serous acinus goes into the lumen of the gland. So here you can see serous acinus, which takes dark color because they synthesize protein synthesizing apparatus, takes hematoxylin stain, and the post or the displaced serous acinus on the top of the mucous acinus is the serous demilume. Intercalated duct is visible, and these white areas or unstained areas are the mucous acinus. There are multiple acini. Here also you can see the mucous acinus, and some ducts are there. In the higher power it is better visible. Already I have mentioned the secretory cells of the serous acini takes dark stain, and these are the areolar tissue. These are the serous acini, and these are the areolar tissue, and this is the ductular system. So these are the three identifying features of parotid gland, which is entirely serous acini, which is entirely serous. These are the striated ducts. It has serous acini. It has a lot of areolar tissue. These are the fatty tissue which has been dissolved during the process of staining. That's why there is no stain. And there are a lot of connective tissue where you can see the ductular system. This is excretory duct. These are the collecting ducts. In higher magnification, see the serous acini, which has a round nucleus, is away from the basal side, and this is a duct, a striated duct. Striations can be visible towards the base. So these are the characteristics of the parotid gland. The mucinogen granules, they don't take stain. Actually, the mucinogen is washed out during the tissue processing, so the acini looks unstained. So here are the mucous acini, and here the dark stained acini are the serous acini. So this is a mixed gland, but predominantly serous. The submandibular gland is a mixed gland, but predominantly serous. 90% acini are serous, only 10% are mucous. See the mucous acini and the serous demilume. You have to identify a serous demilume under the microscope. These starred areas or these portions of the acini are the demilume. So now, after studying the sections of the parotid and submandibular gland, we can differentiate the between the serous and the mucous acini. The serous acini, the secretory cells, the nucleus is round and slightly away from the base. So this is a diagram showing the serous acini. You see the real picture. The nucleus is round or spherical and slightly away from the base. And this is the lumen of the acinus. It contains 14 granules. That's why it takes bluish stain towards the base, but the apical portion is red and its secretions are watery. The mucous acini. See the mucous acini, because the mucinogen is washed out, it doesn't take stain, and as the mucinogen granule imbibes water immediately after death, it pushes the nucleus towards the base. The nucleus is flat in comparison to the serous glands or serous acinus, where the nucleus is round. Here the nucleus is flat. So nucleus is flat and basal in position. It contains full of water soluble mucinogen granules. That is why it doesn't take the stain, and the secretion is viscous, slimy. The salivary ducts. Already I mentioned the salivary ducts has three portions. The portion immediately adjacent to the acinus, or which comes out from the acinus, is the intercalated duct. And intercalated ducts are lined by simple squamous or cuboidal epithelium. It has lot of physiological functions also. The next portion is the striated duct. Intercalated duct drains into the striated duct, which is lined by cuboidal to columnar epithelium. All these striated ducts, they join to form the excretory duct, which is lined by columnar epithelium, even pseudostratified columnar epithelium, which drains into the cavity, either mouth cavity or cavity of any of the visceral organs. The major salivary glands, already I have mentioned. The salivary glands are parotid gland, which is situated in front of the ear, the submandibular gland, just behind the angle of the mandible, and the sublingual gland below the tongue. The parotid gland is entirely serous. You can see it has taken the stain, and there are a lot of connective tissue or areolar tissue where the ductular system is there. So the identifying features of the parotid gland are entirely serous acini, more amount of connective tissue and fat, and more amount of ducts or ductular system. The submandibular gland is a mixed gland. You can see there are serous acini and mucous acini, but it is predominantly serous. The sublingual gland is also a mixed gland, but you can identify here there are lots of mucous acini. Very rarely you can see some of the serous acini. Here is the picture of submandibular gland, where you can see serous and mucous acini. This is the serous portion and these are the mucous portion. You can see the mucous acini, typical appearance of the mucous acini, where the nucleus of the secretory cells are towards the base and there is a demi-lumen. The arrow shows the demi. The pancreas is both exocrine and endocrine gland. In this class, we will see the exocrine portion of the pancreas. Here the dark stained areas are the serous acini of the pancreas, and in between you can see there are light stained areas. These are the islets of Langerhans which secretes insulin and glucagon. But insulin and glucagon are released into the blood vessels. So the endocrine portion is ductless gland. So this is a typical acinus of the pancreas. You can see the position of the nucleus towards the base, and a duct is coming out from the acinus. This is the intercalated duct, and if the section passes through the middle of the acinus, the nucleus will be visible. So this nucleus is called centroacinar nucleus. This is one of the features of the pancreas. This is showing, the arrow showing one of the islets. This is the section of the pancreas where you can see the serous acinus, and here is the serous acinus and the islets, groups of cells. The staining is also different and not arranged in the acinar formation. This is low power magnification of the pancreas, showing the acinus or the acinar arrangement. This is the connective tissue forming the lobules of the pancreas. Here is one of the ducts. In the inside, you can see the islets of Langerhans, which is different from the acini. This is the islet. This is the acini of the pancreas, and the ID is intercalated duct coming out from the acinus. After studying the salivary glands, let us study the mammary glands. This is a picture of the non-lactating mammary gland, which contains only the duct system and connective tissue. This is one of the lobule of the mammary gland. The lobule contains small ducts and collecting ducts. This is called intralobular collecting duct. So here you can see the ducts of the mammary gland, which are the terminal ductules. This terminal ductules join to form the intralobular collecting duct. This terminal ducts are lined by cuboidal epithelium, and there are loose connective tissue. This is called intralobular connective tissue. Intralobular connective tissue are loose connective tissue. So this is one of the lobe of the breast or the lactating gland, and outside the lobe there is interlobular dense connective tissue. This is interlobular dense connective tissue. Inside the lobule, connective tissue is loose, and here contains a lot of plasma cells and lymphocytes. Actually, mammary gland is a tubulo-alveolar gland. So you can see tubules here only. Alveoli are developed in the lactating mammary gland. This is the non-lactating mammary gland, where you can see a lobule here and lot of ducts or ductules, and in between there is dense connective tissue. In higher magnification, one can see the ducts are lined by columnar epithelium or cuboidal epithelium. This is the section of the duct. The lactating mammary gland, you can see alveoli lined by cuboidal epithelium. There are lots of alveoli, and in the connective tissue, loose connective tissue, there are lots of cells are there. These are the plasma cells who secrete IgE in the secretions, and there is acinar arrangement. Some of the acini, you can see the secretions. This is the connective tissue surrounding the lobule. This is the dense connective tissue, or this is the interlobular dense connective tissue. So these are the small lobules, and these are the tubulo-alveolar glands. This is one of the big ducts containing secretion. It is lined by cuboidal epithelium. In higher magnification, you can see the duct system with cuboidal epithelium. Actually, there are 3 ducts opening into common place. This is also non-lactating mammary gland containing mainly the duct system, and in between the duct there are dense connective tissue. This is a bigger duct which is lined by stratified cuboidal or columnar epithelium. Mostly it is stratified columnar epithelium, and these are the areolar tissue. Here also the areolar tissue is there. After studying the mammary gland, let us see the sweat gland. Sweat gland has 2 portions. It is a tubular gland and it is a coiled tubular gland. The glandular portion lies in the deep part of the skin, that is called hypodermis. It is coiled structure. If you take a cross section of the sweat gland, you can see multiple lumens of the gland. Here you can see one lumen, there is another lumen, and they are lined by stratified cuboidal epithelium. Somewhere you can see multiple layers, multiple nuclei, but because of the section has passed obliquely, that's why it looks multiple layers. Otherwise, it is lined by cuboidal epithelium. See the lumen of the duct, and this is the lumen of the gland. Gland is lined by cuboidal epithelium, 2 layers of cuboidal epithelium. The duct is also lined by cuboidal epithelium, but duct cells are darker in stain than the glands. See the diameter of the glands and the diameter of the ducts. The ducts are smaller than the glandular portion, and the staining is also different. Actually, the sweat gland has 3 types of cells: the dark cells, light cells, and myoepithelial cells towards the base. The myoepithelial cells are absent in the ductular portion. In the gland, this is the myoepithelial cell. The glandular portion contains dark cells, light cells. It is very difficult to identify the dark and light cells. The dark cells are towards the lumen and the light cells are towards the base of the gland. So, identifying points or differentiation between the ducts and glands are: the diameter of the glandular portion is larger than the diameter of the ducts. The cellular lining, both are cuboidal, but in the ducts they are darkly stained. The lumen of the duct is also less than the lumen of the glands. This is showing the duct, and here is the gland. The sebaceous gland. The sebaceous glands do not take the stain because they contain oily substance or fatty substance which is washed out during the tissue processing. So nucleus can be seen and boundaries of the cell can be seen. The sebaceous gland is located near the hair follicle. This is the sebaceous gland, this is the hair follicle, and there is a muscle called the erector pili muscle. Contraction of the erector pili muscle helps in the excretion of the gland into the hair follicle. Here are the sections of the sweat gland. See the lumen of the gland and see the lumen of the duct. The glandular lumen is larger and the glandular lining cells are lighter in color. The duct cells are darker and it is lined by stratified cuboidal epithelium. You can see distinctly two layers of cuboidal epithelium. Although the gland also is lined by cuboidal epithelium, but because of the coiled structure, it doesn't show that it is stratified. The sebaceous glands are here. That the details of the cells cannot be seen because the sebum has been washed out. The boundaries can be seen, and the dark color areas or dark color cells are the basal cells. Actually, these cells are dying cells or dead cells which is excreted along with the cellular contents as sebum, and the basal cells acts as a stem cell from which new sebaceous glands are formed. This is the lumen of the gland and the lumen of the duct, and these are the